Now it's coming to light, thanks to the Fauci emails. And someone who's been trying to get to the bottom of what Mr. Fauci has done, just like me, to this country over the last 15 months with these crazy lockdown regulations. He's in a state where, well, they didn't really go for it down in Florida. Congressman Matt Gaetz now joining the program. Congressman, thanks for coming back on the program. Let's just right to it. These emails, I watch how the mainstream media last night and today just plucked a few out and then actually had Fauci on as a guest and said he did great, and the emails made him look good. Maybe they didn't read the emails where he was downplaying its origin, downplaying that it could have been engineered, saying that masks really don't work. No, we don't talk about those, Matt.
We know that China lied about coronavirus. We know the World Health Organization lied. And now we even see Dr. Fauci shading the truth. You're right. Dr. Fauci, in many ways, is a creation of the mainstream media. And now they are doing his dirty work for him, protecting him from criticism that rightly flows from the release of these emails. Here's what the American people have to know. The very research that birthed coronavirus on the world was research that Dr. Fauci was aware of. It was happening at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And when President Trump, myself, and others rightly said that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was likely the source of this virus, Dr. Fauci was actually covering for people like Peter Daszak and others who were involved financially with that grant program to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Certainly, we have to question now a lot of the recommendations that Dr. Fauci has made, and in a lot of ways, he's like every bad weatherman. He's frequently wrong, but never in doubt, and now we see he was willing to share truths with his friends and with colleagues that he wasn't willing to share with the American people.
Wow, Matt, I used to use that analogy all the time in the local TV biz. Whether people can be wrong half the time and still get their whole paycheck. Fauci's been cashing in, right, getting the whole paycheck while he's been wrong over half the time. I want to show you a clip quick. This is our friend Nicole Wallace over at MSNBC yesterday, literally bragging up the fact that these emails almost make him look better. Listen to this and we'll get your reaction.
I read through your emails that were released, and I just want to read one of them. There were a lot of inquiries about your public profile. I mean, this very conversation was much harder to have under the ex-president. And this was your response to one about whether or not you'd have a press conference. You wrote, "Yikes, that would make 4 days in a row without a press conference for me, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and tomorrow." I wonder if you feel like you're still making up some of that lost ground from many months under the last administration.
There's no doubt that there are people out there who, for one reason or other, resent me for what I did in the last administration, which was not anything that was anti-Trump at all. It was just trying to get the right information, to try and get the right data, and what they didn't seem to understand.
Well, the true mark of someone is if they look good, even when their personal emails come out. So you passed the test that very few of us would pass.
You passed the test that very few of us would. I mean, do they pay these anchors and hosts at these networks to do this stuff, or what?
Well, the premise of Nicole Wallace's point seems to be that we all would have been so much better off during coronavirus if we had just heard from Dr. Fauci more. And I don't know many Americans who think that more input from Dr. Fauci is actually what would have led to more responsible decisions that followed the science. As you pointed out in the opening of this segment, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did a lot more to follow the science than Dr. Fauci did. But I guess we should expect no less of Nicole Wallace. She was the one saying that the premise for the war in Iraq were weapons of mass destruction. So it wouldn't be the first time she has been unable to ascertain the facts when reviewing them.
Those pesky facts, Matt, they get in the way. I know that you just introduced some legislation to ban what we keep hearing about, these vaccine passports that people are worried about, like, am I going to be able to go on a plane, go to my job, do this, do that? The president keeps saying he's not going to put one in place, but we keep hearing calls for them in different states, and corporations now are talking about implementing these vaccine passports. What happened to freedom of choice, Congressman?
Well, freedom of choice will be impaired if we allow big business in this country to constrain people's rights unreasonably, unnecessarily, and in a way that isn't always tied to science. I don't want to trade stupid mask mandates for stupid vaccine passports. That's why I've introduced legislation to make them illegal everywhere in America, not for any business to implement, not for any government to implement. And the reason is because a lot of these businesses took money from taxpayers in the form of PPP loans. I think that's fine, but you shouldn't be able to take money from the taxpayers and then turn around and use the fact that you're an ongoing concern to then limit the rights of the people in this country to move about, to access the financial system, any number of things that could be impacted if vaccine passports become the norm. I'm not ready for it. I still trust the people of this country to make their own decisions regarding their own health, and I don't trust big business or big government.
Yeah, neither do I, and I'm not getting a passport. They better never happen. Got to ask you about this one. Tomorrow, we're talking about a former White House counsel, Don McGahn, who worked for President Trump. He's going before the House Judiciary Committee. They want to talk more about the Mueller report. I know that you've got an opinion on this. What are Democrats still digging for? What are we going to witness tomorrow?
I don't think this is a circumstance, Dan, where Democrats are merely trying to vindicate their power to bring in a former White House counsel. I believe that Democrats are actively pursuing criminal prosecutions against former President Trump. I think they're doing it in New York with Cy Vance. I think they're doing it with the D.C. Attorney General. And I think they're doing it with the Department of Justice as a whole by trying to resurrect some claim of obstruction of justice all the way back from the Mueller report. So this isn't about just revisiting the machinations. I think this is literally about using criminal process against Trump. And why would they do that, Dan? Because they fundamentally fear Donald Trump running in 2024,
yes,
being the most dynamic candidate, obtaining the Republican nomination, and reasserting his time in the White House.
Well, Matt, I know you sit on that committee, so I assume we'll see some fireworks tomorrow. I can't wait to see that. And finally, I wouldn't be doing my job as an old school journalist if I didn't ask, because we know the left likes throwing you under the bus any chance they can. They were doing it today before you and I began this interview. They're still looking and, of course, hammering you on the probe into the allegations of partying with underage girls and drugs and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to ask you on this program right now, any validity to it, and stand up for yourself. What do you got to say to these guys that are throwing these allegations out there before anything in the investigation even comes out and we learn anything? They're just throwing you under the bus.
The allegations you referenced are total nonsense. 2 months ago, with anonymous allegations and unnamed sources, the New York Times and the left-wing media tried to smear my life, saying that I had somehow mistreated women. We are now 2 months after those allegations were anonymously made, and there is not a single woman I'm aware of saying that I mistreated them. So I think the mainstream media has egg on their face. I think the Department of Justice has been terribly politicized. We see that in how they're treating Trump, how they are treating Rudy Giuliani, how they treated Steve Bannon, how they're treating me. And one lesson we've learned, they come for the fighters. But you know what, Dan? I'm going to keep fighting for the agenda that former President Trump brought to Washington, D.C. I'm going to keep fighting for my constituents and my country, and I'm not going to let the process be the punishment. There's important work to do in the country, and I'm here to get it done.
Good for you. Representing Florida's 1st Congressional District, Congressman Matt Gaetz. You take care of yourself. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you being back.